What does the September 11th National Day of Service and Remembrance mean to you and the National Park Service?
For me personally, it's a very evocative day because I remember so vividly what happened in on 9/11 and its impact on my life. It's still hard to talk about to this day just because the world changed before my eyes, and I hadn't really experienced that before in my lifetime. But for the National Park Service, what it did for us is it gave us a concept of, for the sacrifice that were made by so many people, to honor them, do so in a venue that provided for an opportunity for public service. And the public service that would do benefit to the national park but honor the memory of those people whose lives were sacrificed on that day under those tragic events.
Could you talk a little bit about the volunteer program and perhaps the International Volunteers Program and parks, and how does one apply for it? And so
Volunteers are largely a backbone of the National Park Service and have been for years. We're very reliant on them. And so the National Service Day is an opportunity for us on 9/11, September 11th, to basically make that point. We have about 221,000 volunteers a year who work for us. We have more volunteers than we do employees in the National Park Service. They do tremendous work for us. They do things for us that we could not do without their help. And because we see the parks as kind of a democratic ideal where they're the people's parks, using volunteers and allowing them to help us in that context perpetuates that idea that the parks are for the people, because they're not just being administered by a bunch of bureaucrats. They're being run and serviced by the public, by people who care about the parks and want to contribute to them. So volunteers are just an incredible ally to us in trying to preserve and protect these resources.
And how do volunteers work to preserve and protect these national parks?
We have a number of venues where they help us out. They help us at visitor centers. The chances are that when you come to a park and you'll be talking to what you think is a park employee, in all likelihood you're probably talking to a volunteer. They're the people that will tell you where the restrooms are. They will tell you what time the education programs are, where you can go to find trails, where you can go to buy diapers for your baby, where you can find a meal, where you can get water. They'll help you with all that, but they also do a number of different activities. We get trail maintenance work done by volunteer crews. We get archival help with consolidating our museum and historic properties collections with volunteers. We have volunteers that help us with photographs of the parks and creating a record. We have volunteers that help us with spraying for noxious weeds. We have volunteers that help us with inventorying for species and such. And we do this throughout the park system in just an infinite number of roles. We don't really restrict the use of volunteers as much as we're restricted by who's available to us and what level of expertise they bring at that time. And what we try to do is match up the skill set with the need we have. And it's real easy for people to become volunteers. They can go to a website we have, www.nps.gov, and there's a link there to volunteers where you can register and find a park that you may want to volunteer at that's available to where you're going to be visiting locally, and explore what opportunities exist during the time you'll be visiting a park. And so we try to make it as simple as we can because we need to in order to have the people come out and help us, because we're not going to be able to service the needs of these resources without the help that we get from this vast array of volunteers. And 9/11 is a perfect opportunity for us to heighten that and to build upon the tragedy that happened on that day, but turn it into a positive for the future.